All right, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for our panel that will be moderated by Andrew Ashiofu. So we would like to welcome our guest speaker and moderator, Andrew Ashiofu. Please give him a round of applause. Real quick, just a few housekeeping things for our panel. Please listen with an open mind, and please keep in mind that we've all had positive and negative experiences with different communities. So please stay away from assumption that any group holds a monolithic view about any other group. I mean, it's human nature to react negatively when someone talks about your community as a stereotype or makes assumptions about your behaviors or your view. Let's practice fairness, and essentially, if you don't like people making assumptions about you or stereotypes about you, don't do the same to others. We will open up for 1 to 3 audience questions after each panelist discussion, depending on time, which we're really short on. Andrew will decide what to do from that. But otherwise, Andrew, welcome. Andrew is a dedicated advocate and a community leader with a career spanning in health, equity, and political activism. He is deeply involved in social justice initiatives. Andrew holds leadership roles that demonstrates his commitment to equity and representation, including chair of Washington State Stonewall Democrats, co-chair of the Seattle LGBTQ+ Commission, former co-chair of what's called Civic Engagement Committee, and vice chair outreach for the King County Democrats. Welcome, Andrew. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and welcome once again. And thank you, Lisa, for the introduction. Today, we're going to have 4 amazing elected officials across King County. The first person I would like to introduce to the panel is Dr. Steve Woodard, the mayor of Mountlake, Terrace, and vice president of Community Engagement and Volunteers of America, Western Washington. Service is his calling. Dr. Woodard has served on several boards and commissions and is known for his advocacy of education and public service, including through his prior role as a college administrator and his ongoing engagement with Teachers of Color Foundation and Foundation for Edmond School District. Please help me welcome Mayor Steve. I would like to introduce our next guest panelist, and that's Deputy Mayor of Shoreline and also one of ours, and that's Eben. Deputy Mayor Eben, he's a community-driven leader, a proud father of 4 daughters, and enjoys playing the drums in his spare time. We do have some drums at the back, so we expect some. A technology entrepreneur and business leader. Eben is the co-founder of 4 software companies. 4. I mean, come on now, 4 software companies. And currently serves as CEO of EPOPS, Solutions Fintech Technology, Eagle Pay Corporation, and Deep Technologies LLC. In his public service role, Deputy Mayor Eben works alongside 6 fellow council members to help govern the city of Shoreline, a vibrant and growing community of approximately 61,000 residents. Please help me welcome Deputy Mayor Eben. Our next is the SeaTac City Council, and we're really sorry about the whole airport drama from anyone from SeaTac. I still call it SeaTac, okay? Senayet is a proud Ethiopian American community leader, public servant, and advocate for equity and justice. At just 24, was elected to the SeaTac City Council, becoming one of the youngest elected officials in Washington State. Has since served as deputy mayor from 2022 to 2024 and present, and continues to lead on critical issues as chair of the city's administration finance committee, and throughout her work on regional committees focused on parks, recreation, gun violence prevention, as well as National League of Cities, Human Development Committee, which focuses on advancing policies and initiatives that support education, housing, health, and family well-being nationwide. Above all, is a proud wife to Lucas and mother to 3 young boys. Please help me welcome SeaTac City Council member. Okay, I'm from Seattle, so I'm partial to the last speaker, who's also a very good friend of mine. I would like to introduce City Council, newly elected, in a very well-defined way. The people gave her the power. The people spoke in the ballot, having one of the highest margin victory ever in a long time.
Wow.
City Councilor Dionne. She has spent the last 15 years improving access and outcome for vulnerable Seattleites. Her career spans the non-profit, government, and philanthropic sectors, where the common thread has been commitment to service. Councilmember Foster holds an undergraduate degree from George Mason University and a Master of Social Work from the University of Washington, Go Huskies, where she later served as adjunct faculty. Councilmember Foster was most recently the Executive Director of Washington Progress Alliance, where she invested in research, organizing, and policies to improve outcomes to the LGBTQIA+ community, immigrant and civil rights, housing equity, and improving representative governments across Washington State. Councilmember Foster is a proud resident of South Seattle, where she's raising her family. And this session will also be recorded. That's okay. So we have a set of conversation questions or discussions, and we will do maybe 1 to 2 minutes per speaker, just to go around time and see how much we have time left for the conversation and questions from the audience. So one thing Abel would say is, for community members that are looking to get help from their city government, what type of policies or ordinances can non-profits, businesses, or community members come to their local council meetings to get assisted with? Can you name at least one specific example of a policy or decisions you consider in council to help community leaders?
Thank you, Mayor. Senayet Negusse here, City of SeaTac Deputy Mayor, and I agree with everything they have shared already. I do want to add, in the City of SeaTac specifically, we have a city council, city manager form of government. So what that means is that our 7-member elected body, as a council member, our job is to bring forth policy, shape policy, adopt policies, and adopt the budget. The job of our staff is operations. They are supposed to execute the vision of the council through programs and services that they provide to our community members. And so where does our community, our business owners, our residents come in? That is where you bring in your lived experience. Just as the previous speakers shared, it is so important that you have access directly to your elected officials, directly to your city staff, and that could be through any form of communication. We have social media now, we have other public forums as well. And I know in the City of SeaTac, we host a lot of public events, and we really try to be intentional. We go to our apartment buildings. We go to our businesses door to door. And we have forums such as boards and commissions for members of the public to participate. And that's actually how I got involved in government, is by serving on a commission and people said, hey, there's issues happening in the city of SeaTac, please run for office. And so it really is a forum for change. In the last 6 years that I've served on the council, almost everything that I have brought forward has been from members of our community. Last year, we had a beautiful proclamation day. We hosted our first ever Ethiopian Day around the soccer events. We had a coffee ceremony in City Hall during our meeting. We had a recess, and there were children and music and dancing and bunna, and it was so beautiful. We have brought and partnered with our nonprofit African Community Housing Development to bring a farmer's market, a BIPOC farmers market to the city of SeaTac, not only increasing access to farm fresh food, but increasing the economic vitality in our communities. And so lifting up those farmers and lifting up those businesses. And so again, I can give you dozens and dozens of examples where we have increased access to services, programs, education, and resources because of the ideas that have been brought forward from direct members of our community. So my advice is come with data, come with community signatures, testimonies, and with a clear policy ask. We may not be able to invest in everything, but we do have the ability to change policies and amend our budget. And so please stay consistent, stay active, and thank you so much for having us here.
This is great. I want to talk, I guess, about for Seattle, since I'm only Seattle council member here. So we have a little bit of a different. Is this echoing or is this okay? Okay. We have a little bit of a different structure because we elect our mayor and we elect our city council separately, which is different than the system that Deputy Mayor was just talking about. So we have a 9-person city council. And we have similar responsibilities in terms of passing the budget. And one of the things, I guess, the story that I'll tell that gives the example of how the communication with city council can be really helpful is I've been in this role, I think 7 weeks or something like that. But I was out in community and I was talking to somebody about youth engagement, and there were some parents there were some parks employees there, and I was like, you know, what's going on? What do you guys need? What kinds of gaps are you experiencing? And they were like, yeah, so we have the late night team program, but we only have it 2 nights a week, right? And we wish that we had it more nights a week so we could build relationships, so there was more consistent place for people to be able to go and access, right? So I come back to City Hall and I say, how much would that cost for us to do that? Where could we find the money from to do that? And that gives me the opportunity now in February to start answering those questions before we have the opportunity to work on our budget in October. So sometimes it's just as simple as saying to somebody, here's what we're missing, so that we get a chance to understand if we can either change budget or change policy to deliver on that thing that is missing. I also think part of Andrew's question was about like the breadth of what city councils can do. And most everything, right? And sometimes we may say, actually, we want you to go to the mayor's office first. So I'll give you an example. Does anybody live in Seattle? Okay. So right now in Seattle, we last fall passed the Families, Education, and Preschool Promise Levy. So somebody's phone alarm's going off. Oh, sorry. Yep, okay. So we passed the Families, Education, Preschool Promise Levy. And now this year, we have to allocate the money from that levy, right? So that money goes broadly towards preschool, K through 12, and then now there's a large new bucket for mental health services. So we want to hear from community members when we're thinking about those connections between young people and mental health services, how that money should be spent. And sometimes that means somebody will email me, and then I can share it over to the department who's working on that implementation plan. So when we hear from you all, we can not only just do policy and budget work, but we can be a bridge to people who are doing long-term planning. We also have the opportunity to create legislation on housing. We have the opportunity in some cases to do legislation on progressive taxation, and we've been able to recently at the City of Seattle provide tax breaks for small business owners through shifting our tax code so that we are having large corporations pay more and smaller businesses pay less. But all of those things start with hearing from a community member about what's going on.
Thank you. I just want to add a quick question to this. One thing I hear from people is how do we navigate the language barrier in trying to speak to the city administration? What kind of resources do you all have in your council meetings that navigates language for people? Because I know it's Robert rules of laws and all those things could be very disenfranchising to a lot of people, and we now add language to that. So what avenue do we have for language access to speak up?
I'm going to try this mic. I think this is better. There's two things. So one, so for Seattle, we have full council every Tuesday at 2 p.m. and there's the opportunity to do public testimony then. I also know that's the middle of the day and the middle of the week, right? But for a lot of folks, I think maybe what is not as apparent is you can always reach out to an elected official and request a meeting. And if for language services, we have the ability to plan in advance, and then we can have simultaneous interpretation in those meetings. So I just did this recently with a group who reached out and asked for a meeting with my office, and we have headsets, and then an interpreter comes, and then we'll be able to plan for a longer meeting in those instances so that we can have that simultaneous interpretation happen. So that's absolutely an opportunity, and all it takes is sending an email and communicating about that need. I also know for a lot of the engagement events that the city does, they will either have somebody doing interpretation depending on the focus of the event, or they can provide it upon request.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Foster. Yeah, so I think this is an important question, and you can demand it, is my answer. It is your right. And that is something that I'm very passionate about as the daughter of refugees, as a bilingual person. I tell people all the time, there are still, despite who's in office, you have federal protections. Title VI says that we cannot discriminate on race, color, or national origin. And national origin includes language access. Your government should be providing you access to language access, whether that's in the form of interpretation, as Councilmember Foster said, translation, transcription, American Sign Language, whatever it is, we should figure it out and we will make it accessible. It is as simple as asking. The other thing is that it should be timely, right? So sometimes it will be, virtual versus the in-person simultaneous, but the more advanced notice, the better. And just to tag on to the language, also want to say that's true of disability access, right? If you have a disability, whether it's a visual impairment, auditory, your government is required to provide those services to you, or make accessible to the best of their ability within, a reasonable accommodation. Because you, as members of the public, should have access and deserve access to your government. And so at the City of SeaTac, we absolutely do prioritize and try to offer language services in our top 5-6 languages, whether it's at an event. At council meetings, we do request advance notice, but we will absolutely make it happen and provide it to you, so please do come. And I do want to note that of our 7-member council, 5 different languages are spoken.
I'm not sure I could add much more. I just wanted to come at it a little bit differently, to think about the process itself, especially since we brought up Robert's rules, which maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, but that is not us. So what we have done on Terrace is we make sure that we have explained what you are watching. And the best example I can give is firstly, we make sure that every meeting has public comments. It used to be at the end, but we would wait you out. We have 3-4 hour meetings before you could talk. That could be 10, 11 o'clock at night. We put that in the front now. Literally after roll call, we want to hear from the public. So that's one of the first adjustments. But from that, it's a very unnerving experience if you've never done it. Because here's what Robert's Rules has you do. While you're at the podium giving your life story, I'm looking at you like this. The entire time. And the other folks are doing the same thing, which can be very unnerving if you're trying to share your story, let alone get resources for folks. So we've had to explain that to folks on the front side. We genuinely shouldn't have any other look on our face because we're trying to receive what you're saying. If I'm instead leaning in and doing this, I'm already formulating what I think your answer is. I've forgotten what you're talking about. So you should expect us to sit back and just receive. But that is a very unnerving experience. I'm just going to be straight with you all. The other part of that is you'll write to a council member, and 9 times out of 10 they won't write back to you because everything we do is public disclosure, and nobody wants to be held accountable for their words. I'm just going to say I'm about the only one who writes back to you. But that's another one of those, hey, I reached out to you. What's going on? And so just kind of that's a different form of language and understanding how it works. So we just add those two, but we do much of what we were hearing as well.
Well, all the things you guys said applies to our city, so you said it all. I don't have anything to say. Is that okay? Next question.
Thank you. So you all had
We'll let you start the next one.
demand, but also give time. And I know my people, we know how to use time. Thank you so much. But really, demand, public comments. One thing that really helps me with public comments is I print out my comments so I can read it, so I'm not looking at their faces. That intimidates me. So now this is a very important question. Whether it was colonialism or slavery, African Americans, Caribbeans, and Africans have had the same oppressor that has used their mastery of divide and conquer to pit brothers and sisters that share the same background, ancestry, DNA against each other. Until present day, we are quick to attack and be violent against each other, destroy our own neighborhoods, instead of working across diaspora communities through embracing our common struggle, embracing our cultural differences, and reaching for shared goals. And I just have to say, for some of you that might not understand the African diaspora, what you're seeing in this room is rare across, even in Africa, even in Europe, even in the USA. The diversity of African countries coming together for a shared purpose is rare. So what we have in this room is unique, and this is what we would like to see in community. From your standpoint of being an influential government and also community leader, in what ways do you think finding one common challenge and working across the diaspora communities to strengthen and build relationship will be viewed from a founder's perspective?
Was that a question? Boy, I thought that was master's degree thesis. Oh my goodness. Okay, all right. First of all, that's a very great question. The longest question I've ever come across. But you know, from leadership and funding perspective, I want to say that unity in the African setting, everybody knows what a broom is. There's no way you can break combined brooms, but you can break a single broom. All right, so unity is strength, so I'll go by that. When we all come together as African, people in the diaspora, African diaspora, I wouldn't say it is morally fantastic or great. I would say it is strategically smart. And that's what we have to do. As from the funding perspective, if I'm reviewing a grant, I want to see that this money is going to have an impact on 50,000 people, not 700 folks. if I'm sitting on a review panel and you apply, for example, for culture grant, I want to see that this fund is going to apply to more than 10,000 people across. And so that's how funders will look at it, the impact. So looking at it from a strong perspective, not silos. That's never going to be sustainable. And so leaders will also look at, well, we're going to find this organization. What's going to be the benchmark? What results is it going to produce? So there's several of these metrics that I've used to define that. Okay. I'll let my colleagues also ask some more.
Thank you, sir. I have to bring in the unfortunate context of, it used to be a great answer to that. Now I'm not sure with this current administration in the East Coast there, they've really changed how we interact. Now that said, before this administration came in, what we were seeing is funders saying no longer, nothing with us about us, nothing about us without us. That language where we're expecting to see, if you're going to be working in communities, they should be represented in that as well. Where I've seen that the most successful is with the health department in Snohomish County in particular. As we were coming out of COVID, we did some wonderful work. I think it's that I worked for Volunteers of America, Western Washington, which is to say we're in a lot of communities. Well, COVID really, as you all know, ravaged every single community, but some were further back in terms of getting out of this mess than others because of, going back to language, wasn't accessible, the imagery wasn't working. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. Well, the health department went in to talk specifically to communities of color, but knew they couldn't do it with their current makeup of mostly white folks. So they had to reach out to community nonprofits to really get that work done. And I'm very proud of that work that we got done. It's moved further now to community ambassadors at that level. But now, okay, so you've got COVID handled, but there's a lot more out there, and actually a lot more has slipped, and that's before we really get into what's going on with this current administration. But just recognizing that you need to have the voice of the folks who are experiencing or living whatever it is you're trying to remedy. And they have not been in there before, and so I'm seeing that a lot more. But that said, with this current administration, it's been shaky. Absolutely, you're seeing funders step away. So a shout out to Innotai for not doing that. In fact, they made it clear they stepped up because you all stepped up. So we need more folks like that doing that work.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, you all covered it. I think that, we have seen time and time again, and historically, that is what oppression is, right? They want you to be stuck where we're at and where we've been. But I have seen a change in the way that funding is operated, at least within King County. And so I will say that at least here in the city of SeaTac, we are being very intentional. We are noticing that these siloed small investments are not resulting in the outcomes that we want to see, that they're not sustainable. And so what I've been noticing, and I also prefer to support, are the cross-cultural coalitions. It's when multiple communities are coming together, whether it's different faith groups, those of different ethnic, racial, and ethnic backgrounds, coming together around a common issue, whether it's housing displacement, economic issues, whatever it is, community violence, prevention strategies, that is what I want to support. Not silos, but truly system change models. And so when folks are coming to us, it's hard to say, oh, I don't want to support or invest in this, because there's such great impact when you have 5, 10 different communities coming and saying, we're all impacted by this issue. And so I would definitely love to see our diaspora doing more of this. I mean, I can just say, even personally within the Ethiopian community, we have been very divided, unfortunately, interculturally. And it is only when we come together that we can see the change that we want to see. All of our children are impacted. It doesn't matter what tribe you come from. Our children are dying on the streets. Our children are impacted by the drug epidemic, and they are dropping out of school. If we want to see the change, we have seen time and time again throughout history that the way to make movement is to come together. to make changes to come together. And so that is definitely my suggestion. In the City of SeaTac on Tuesday, we will be passing our Human Services Strategic Plan. And in that, in itself, one of the strategies that we will be implementing is, rather than investing in tens and dozens of organizations working on siloed approaches, is to fund fewer organizations or coalitions and make a greater investment, because we believe that will result in greater outcomes for members of our community. So, thank you.
I know, right? What else? No, I think that was beautiful. Like, I think that was really beautiful. I think what I want to add to it is maybe just a story, you know? I was recently at, I'm so bad with names, so I was recently at, I think it was like Somali Community Center down on Rainier in South Seattle, and I was talking to folks there about their space, and they're getting ready to move over into, you know, the old Amara building on MLK. And you know what they said to me is like, we were looking for a spot for a while, and it wasn't until another group said, oh, actually, we're going to go in on this space, and we want to bring, I think it's like 4 or 5 other community groups in together, so that now they will all have access to this new building, right? And that they truly, all of these groups would not have been able to go out and do a capital campaign and do fundraising and invest in a new space. But since they're grouping and banding and collaborating together, then they can create this hub, right? And this new cultural community. And I was like, yeah, that's the power, right? That is exactly what you're talking about, of looking to your peers, looking at each other and being like, okay, what if we do this together? And then I think that also, you know, opens up the door to go for those bigger dollars, right? Because your question was around funding. And I feel like sometimes there's this message for community-based organizations to go for like the small, you know, the 5,000, the 10,000, the smaller size grants. And, you know, even though the need is so much bigger than that. And so through that kind of collaboration, I think it opens up the door to do those bigger things. And then I will say one thing kind of counter to my own point, which is, you know, also sometimes needs are unique, right? And that's okay too. You know, like when you think about like whether it's first gen or a specific language need or a specific thing that's happening in your cultural community, like that's real too, right? And I think that for folks who are funding and, you know, in a different role now, like that you have to be able to say, no, you need to hear me on this. This is specific to my community. So I don't think we should be asking people to shy away from that.
Thank you, and I think that goes with the theme of the event today, standing in unity. Since 2025, we've seen our identities erased on the federal level, and we're talking about working across communities. We've seen where we write grants and we're told, even when we do grant reporting, we cannot say Black, we cannot say the woman, we cannot say this or that. As elected officials on the city level, we feel that's our last line of defense. So how would you, or what would you tell us, through funding and navigating the erasing of diversity, the erasing of equity, the erasing of inclusion, and everything, and the rise of white nationalism happening? How do we navigate that together at the same time trying to get funded? What can the city do, and what can we do together with the city?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it is all about knowing who you're talking to, right? So when it comes to seeking resources from the city of Seattle, we're not about erasing equity. That's not what we're doing, right? We're not about erasing inclusion or language inclusion. We're not about going backwards on those things, right? We've been really, really clear about that. That's not the business, right? And so I think it's about, when I say knowing who you're talking to, and I'm sure that the other panelists are going to say this too, it's like you're going to a local City of Seattle funder, I think speak your truth, right? And the same thing, I know we're in an entitized space right now. There's many other foundations in the area who've been really clear that they're not going in that direction, right? And then I'll say, when I was, again, previous to this, the role that I'm in now as city council member, I would counsel people, okay, if you're going for federal dollars, let's talk strategy about how you talk about your work. And really about knowing your audience, right? That was the thing we used to always say when we were trying to go for money. It's like, okay, if you know one foundation, you know one foundation. Or if you know one funder, you know one funder. So I think it's about figuring out that strategy, but also knowing that, again, when it comes to locally, we are trying to put more money in, right? We are trying, like last year, we put money into legal aid and legal defense for immigrant and refugee communities. We'll look for opportunities to do that again. We are looking at ways that we can make sure that we're passing new policy at the local level to make our region safer from the overreaches that are coming from the federal government. And we're going to keep doing that and keep doing that. So just know that here locally, we are not pivoting and we are not shying away from our commitment.
Councilmember Foster, and I agree with everything that she just said. In SeaTac, we are also not shying away from it. I think with all that's coming from the federal government and the scares that we're feeling, both at the government level as well as in community, right? Because we're like, oh my gosh, how do we navigate this? We don't want to put a target on our back because that puts a target on our community's back, and we know that. But we're also unafraid and firm in our values, and so we're not going to change. And so some of the things that we're working to do in SeaTac is making sure that our systems create space for people to tell their stories, as Councilmember Foster was just sharing, so that you don't have to shy away and say that 32% of the program participants are Black. We don't want you to erase that. That's the reality. The realities that our communities face. And so I would just say, for us, what some of the things we're trying to do is really prioritize, and whether it's through would-be businesses or whether through it's our grant review applications and changing the structure. How are we rating our applications so that we, again, could go in with equity in mind first, so that regardless of who is reviewing that application, they have a framework that they have to follow, and again, center equity. And those who have been historically excluded from the processes and investments that we've made in the past, or my predecessors have made in the past. But so I will say that, continue to show up and speak out, and I think, having relationships with the funders, the organizations, understanding what they're looking for, right? Whether it's reviewing former grant applications or talking to the program manager or staff who are managing those funds to really understand, how are you prioritizing? What are you looking for? And really understanding that is going to be helpful. So again, with us in the city, SeaTac will be passing our, hopefully passing our Human Services Strategic Plan on Tuesday, and we made very specific allocations, right? It's like 30% for long-term investments, right? And so those are some of those system strategies that we're talking about earlier versus sort of one-time relief. There's another bucket of funding set aside from that. Workforce development. And so really looking at how is this program or funding structured, and talking to the folks so that you know how to submit a strong application. Thank you.
I love everything I'm hearing. I'll just add Mountlake Terrace's specific experience, which really the message here is make your city show you how they are committed to this. So I can tell you through our words, we are very committed to it. Our city manager is absolutely committed to equity and inclusion, but demonstrate that in practice for us. So for us, I'll use one that we haven't talked about, I think impacts this community as well, very much so. We're one of the first cities that absolutely spoke out against what's happening with ICE, right? So we publicly made a statement about that. I'm not putting a target on your back. That will definitely make that happen. But more importantly, if I go back to that commission that I told you we helped create together, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, I'm very proud to say that as of about 2 months ago, we passed our first DEIC strategic plan for the entire city. So when I say at a DEI commission, if you thought, oh, you guys have food, right? No, we're going at hiring, we're going at your policies, practice, and we're doing all of that is through a lens of equity and inclusion. And the entire city has to use this rubric, if you will, to make their way through, demonstrate what you are doing in the name of equity and inclusion, not just through your words. So that's what I would add to this question.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to speak very modest, and then the African in me will come out for the last part of it.
We need that.
Yeah. The first part is that the city of Shoreline is what we call equity lens. If you public works, economic development manager, whatever it is, every project you bring to the council, you need to justify whether you are equitably distributing the resources, even within the city, else it's not moving forward. And we have to instill this 6 years ago. At first it was just theory, it was on paper, it wasn't practical, and that's what I hate in my life. Don't put this on paper if you're not going to put it into action. That's one. The second part is, now let's talk as families. You don't show up. That's number one. Number two, are you recording this one? Don't record this part. Number two is that if you are not at the table, you don't get to even read the menu. So I was chair for culture for 6 years, AAC, Arts Advisory Council, and I realized that we were funding a lot of City of Seattle artists and arts organizations. Don't be offended. Hello. All right. And that's what happened to organizations outside the City of Seattle? City of Seattle has a lot of money. So it took us 3 years to change that. 4 years ago, I was in a virtual fight with DCHS, the same thing. They've been funding South Seattle for, don't be offended, South Seattle for years. And I said, what happened to, sorry, not South Seattle, South King County? What happened to North King County? They said, you guys are rich. I said, who told you? That's the African me, now back up here. So when we all get together and we are talking about funding, let's be honest with ourselves. How many of you have volunteered to serve on commissions, on panels, on review panels and all that? I see one. That's 0.001% of the people here. So
Where's Eric?
it is, yeah, that's Eric.
Where's Eric?
Yeah.
Eric, where you at?
Yeah.
Oh, he's
Eric
hiding.
shows
Okay,
up
he's
for
hiding.
him.
Yeah.
He's
I know,
he's-
it's okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So please, we can talk about what the problem is here and the structures that we are trying to break down, but we have to meet ourselves halfway, okay? So that's me. Thank you for understanding.
Thank you. See, Martha, I'm not the one that brings out the African. She always calls me out that I get Nigerian, but that's the way to get these things done. This is why I tell people you need to have the confidence of a white man and the audacity of a Nigerian to get this things done.
That's right.
And then, so thank you all for that.